Hello everyone, and thanks for coming today. In the 80s, my dad told me that I will never get a job if I keep wearing shorts. And this is now my work attire. In the early 90s, as a doctorate student, I told my office mates that the internet was just a fad, μια περαστική μόδα. They went on to become the founders of Yahoo. Predicting the future accurately is hard, damn hard, regardless of intent. So how can you prepare yourselves for a future that you cannot even see? To answer that question, I will first share with you some aphorisms, tips, or general words of advice. You're likely to hear echoes of all the talks that you heard earlier today. Take that as a sign that the future that I speak of is very near and is about to become the present. More importantly, though, I will then share with you my outsider's viewpoint of your own strengths and weaknesses as I see them. Awareness of your collective strengths, which you need to use, and weaknesses that you need to fix, is a key to crafting a strategy for success for yourself. That is, know yourself. Γνώθεις αυτόν. Lastly, I will share with you my viewpoint of myself when I was a younger man of your age. Yes, I was special and gifted in certain ways, but I was also no more perfect than you are. I just dared to dream and then turned that dream into reality through hard work. No magic potion necessary. You can do the same despite your current insecurities, fears, as well as flaws. Listening is the first tip that I want to share with you. Listen critically to your parents, your teachers, as well as other elders. Critically, because you need to look at the mess that your elders' generation made of Greece. As a generation, they have collective responsibility for it. They did screw up. But the specific individual elders in your personal environment do not necessarily have individual responsibility for the mess that the generation made. Even among the collective inhumanity of the Nazis, there were still Germans who retained their humanity. So despite any justifiable anger that you may feel, do listen to what they have to say and learn from their experience. But listen critically, because your elders probably lived most of their lives in Greece. And for the past 40 years, the Greek economy and society have been extremely reluctant to modernize. To take a recent example, consider the wedding industry. Rings, brides' dresses, nifika, receptions, and so on. With the recent legalization of gay marriage in many United States, a new industry is coming into existence specifically to cater the needs of gay couples. His and his matching rings, hers and hers bride's dresses. What do you think your Greek elders can tell you if you ask for their advice about this subject? It's doubtful you will get any input other than, this will never happen here, which is exactly what their own elders told them about civil marriage, politikos gamos. Elders will advise you on professions with very good intent, but with past experience that is increasingly irrelevant as Greece catches up with the rest of the world. My second aphorism, please travel. Greece is like the cave in Plato's allegory. You are seeing shadows of the world, and you think that's all there is to it. Leave the cave. The future of Greece is the present of other countries. Many of the Greek startups I have met have transplanted ideas from successful foreign companies into the Greek reality. How did their founders get exposed to those ideas? Often through travel. But travel not just as a tourist, travel and stay for a long period of time at one place abroad. Live on a farm and see how local farm production works. Then come back and apply those ideas to your own family farm. Or work for a foreign company and get stock options as part of your compensation in addition to the traditional salary. That way you can learn the value of being an employee shareholder, metauchos. Stock or equity-based compensation is incomprehensible to most Greeks and also to many Europeans. However, it is the cornerstone of Silicon Valley. That's how fortunes are made, not by saving from your salary, whether you get 12, 13, or 14 payments a year. Unfortunately, equity for employees is not a practical option in Greece yet, partly because employees themselves do not see the value of that stock, but also because laws and unions make it very hard for employers to give you stock. But that will change. In addition, even if you don't work abroad, just living there and observing carefully the world around you will help you get a taste of what is coming to Greece. That's because as Greek laws get aligned with European directives, companies that thrive abroad will eventually be born into a Greek form as well. For example, in the United States, people need financial advice for their retirement because the government pension is minimal. So they need to save money under special laws that provide low tax rates for retirement savings. But then how much to save? How do I invest those savings? All that requires a mix of expertise in law, finance, and insurance. This is the job of the financial advisor, the personal financial advisor. And like many others, it's not relevant to Greece yet. But the unavoidable restructuring of Greece's bankrupt retirement system will force this job to come into existence here too. Now, a side note to mention a little bit about computer technology trends in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is currently excited about big data and virtual reality. And of course, those technologies will make their way to Greece sooner or later. Big data is about analyzing vast quantities of data quickly and intuitively. Virtual reality is about a new generation of technology that provides immersive experiences. It feels like I'm right there, feeling that you get when you enter a virtual world. And it does all that without the bulky equipment, time delays, and low resolution of the 90s headsets that you had to wear. Even if you're not an engineer, both of these technologies are relevant to you, even if it doesn't feel like it at first. If you're an analyst, you may have heard of a job called data scientist. This is the person that assists a business person using big data software to derive insights from data, to drive business decisions. If you're a lawyer, big data raises a large number of issues around privacy, as well as control of information. If you're an artist or an entertainer, virtual reality is a new creative medium. Virtual reality is not just about geeks playing computer games with each other. It's a new kind of immersive cinematic experience. It's like going to an IMAX movie theater when you're high on hallucinogenic drugs. It feels that real. Another technological advantage happening is Internet of Things, or IoT, and you heard a little bit about it earlier. It broadly means that there are sensors and actuators that are proliferating, that are becoming more popular. Sensors are about measuring something in the real world so that that information becomes available to the computer. Actuators, like motors, are a way for the computer to impact the world in return. As computers know more about the world around them, and they can also impact the world around them, that means they can do more everyday tasks. That means that some people will lose skills that they currently have. For example, these days, city people don't know how to milk a goat. Right. IoT will also help some other people, possibly handicapped ones, interact more fully with the world around them as the computer compensates for their handicaps. This is not the remote future I'm talking about. In the United States already, car insurance companies will give sensors to their customers so that they will install them in their cars. That way, they can measure driving behavior and accordingly adjust insurance rates. Safe drivers pay less. Architecture, city planning, medicine, insurance, education, all of those will have to adapt to the new changing technologies. My third aphorism: do not overspecialize. Overspecialize is partly the fault of the Greek educational system, especially at the university level. But even so, it's not only the fault of the system, it's also the fault of the students. because many assume it is the university's job to prepare you for the future. But it's your future. Take personal responsibility for it. If your pharmacy school teaches you only basic medical skills, then take business and marketing classes at another school. That way you will be prepared to have a competitive pharmacy when the state no longer guarantees a profit margin or forces certain hours of operation on you, as is the case today. If you're training to be a doctor or a scientist, learn your craft in English as well as Greek so that you can keep up to date with the latest innovations. If you're studying law, then study the laws of other countries, because Greece's national law will become subsumed by the European directives. In short, it's not enough to do one thing well. It is essential that you do several more things well enough. My fourth aphorism: make the most of your summers between school years. If you cannot find a job in Greece or abroad, then volunteer for a non-profit and make the world a better place. If you cannot find a volunteer position, go online, join a community. Join programming or debate contests, essay competitions, writing competitions, poetry competitions, open source software projects, maker fairs, anything. Maybe even work for a local startup, even for free. Even if you don't believe in the business that they are doing, even if you don't believe that they are viable. That way you will sharpen your skills, you will learn teamwork, and you will also track technology trends. Do not be overly picky about the subject matter or about your salary and the pay. Seemingly irrelevant skills may become essential at surprising moments in the future. For example, for my company, I built this car right here out of Legos that I learned while I was a kid, much like the exhibit that you saw downstairs earlier. And it illustrates how big data can power the Internet of Things. Also, be creative and proactive about opportunities. If you are an archaeologist, travel to an archaeological site operated by a foreign team, and then ask them if you can help out for free and benefit from their advice during work breaks. My fifth aphorism and last one: think global. Foreigners will want to work in Greece, and conversely, you need to look for jobs abroad as well, as you all compete. Depending on your profession, that may mean living abroad for part or all of the year, or not at all. For example, you can be a freelance programmer living in Larissa and getting programming jobs abroad via global online platforms that pair up employers with contractors. Or you may run a local farm and then spend part of your winters in Europe trying to promote your products or identify distribution outlets. Also, Europe is small. Think globally. And think globally means including China in your thinking. Learn basic conversational Chinese, if only to just break the ice when you meet a customer, a supplier, a colleague from China, such as a Costco personnel. At a minimum, you need to watch lots of Chinese martial arts movies. They are awesome, yes, and they teach you something about Chinese values and culture, besides Kung Fu. Lastly, if you want to start your own company using venture capital, you need to create a product or a service that can scale beyond the boundaries of the tiny, idiosyncratic Greek market. Only then can an investor expect a profit large enough to justify the investment risk. Now let's get personal. On to how I see your generation. You have some weaknesses and some strengths. The Greek state has many pathologies, which you know better than I do firsthand. You cannot change the system quickly, but that's no excuse to reinforce it. So do the right thing. Donate blood, for example. Don't smoke indoors, even if others are doing so. The more Greeks follow the rule of law, the more investors Greece will attract, the more jobs will be created. To paraphrase an American saying, if you break your eggs by accident, you can choose to waste your energy complaining, or instead, you can be creative, add some feta, and make omelette. And to quote John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Now, Greek families and friends are a mixed bag. most will rarely encourage you to think globally, live abroad, or take major risks. Thus, they turn close bonds, δεσμοί, into bondage, δεσμά. Or they may cultivate incorrect stereotypes, such as Germans being cold people, or that Greek employers are vampire crooks who are out to drink the blood of the innocent working class. On the other hand, the strong bonds within families and between friends form a safety net in the event a risky business doesn't work out. Which brings me to your advantages. Some are not the first to come to mind, but are nonetheless important in a globalized workforce. For example, most Greeks are non-Muslim and white, which in this imperfect and still racist world we live in means you won't experience the bias targeting Muslims and people of color. Also, Greeks can be found everywhere around the globe, and so you can find Greek food or go to a church for Pascha anywhere in the world. This is a global support network for all young Greeks. Use it. But the key strength of Greece that I wanted to share with you is its present mess. I'm not joking, it's a strength. Quite simply, economies are cyclical. You are now in one of the lowest points the Greek economy has experienced in the recent past. Massive debt, huge unemployment, and incompetent leadership. Whether its party color is blue, green, or red, it doesn't matter. Historically, every such downturn has been followed by an upturn and prosperity, whose roots are being planted right now, partly in Greece, by entrepreneurs like Sotiris Bantas and Mikes Atipas, and partly outside Greece, by talented Greek immigrants who will later transplant back into Greece, innovating companies or their know-how. Greece's brain drain is the very insurance policy for its bright future. In parallel, economic Darwinism, η θεωρία του Δαρβίνου στα οικονομικά, is killing off the weaker Greek companies that relied on cronyism and connections to do business. Stronger firms focused on exports are surviving and will thrive. It's hard to watch a forest burn, but it always grows back, and it's often healthier than before the fire. And now I'll tell you a little bit about how I see myself half a lifetime ago. First, I was confident of my technical skills, but I was not always confident about other aspects of my life. When I left the US, I wondered, will I regret my decision to leave behind everything? It turns out I didn't need to have confidence in everything. I just needed to have confidence in one thing, which would be my rock and my strength in times of doubt. The philosopher René Descartes allowed himself to doubt everything about the world except his capacity to think. I think, therefore I am, became his cornerstone. Find yours. Second, I was very lonely at first. I had gone to the US by myself, leaving behind my parents, my sister, my friend, my girlfriend. Loneliness was an opportunity to look within and learn to love myself, and I don't mean with my hand. I left many old habits behind, like my terrible driving, and surrounded myself with people that brought out the best in me, such as my lovely wife of 15 years. Third, I was clueless about my future. I was convinced that pure research was what I wanted to do, and that I was going to be a professor. A few years later, I dropped out of the PhD program, and I was on my way of 18 years of involvement with Silicon Valley companies and startups. I had no idea that instead of living in a house in a university campus, I would be living in the middle of nowhere in Texas, working over the internet. Could have been Larissa. In terms of technology trends, I was in Silicon Valley as the internet boom started, but at first I thought it was a fad. And I made the same mistake again. I underestimated the impact of mobile. I didn't need a cell phone then, and I still do not have a cell phone. But this lack of personal need blinded me to how the proliferation of cell phones in the United States would cause telephone adoption to grow worldwide. How that would cause calling rates to drop due to competition. How internet-based telephony and VoIP and Skype and all that would further drop those rates. And how this would enable companies to open call support centers in India. and how this move would enable India to become a hub for technology services, and how the Indian economy would push forward, and so on. Further back in time, as a kid, I even wanted to be a garbage collector because they worked nights and I didn't want to go to bed early. Now, does that sound like someone who had it all figured out and was ready to make his mark on the world? Not at all. So have hope if you feel a bit lost at this point in your lives. Dare to dream that you will win the Hunger Games of life. Young men and women, may the odds be ever in your favor.